Hey, we're back with sharing about Saudi Arabia. And right now we're going to talk about the belief system, what you need to know when you go to Saudi Arabia about the actual people who live there. So we're going to talk about the Quran. We're going to talk about women, what their role is in all of this. We're going to talk about the government. We're going to talk about helping the poor, what prayer is really about, using your left hand, and how to welcome people appropriately. Are you ready? Okay, so first of all, the entire area, right? So I was in Riyadh in March 2022, and the entire area of Riyadh and Saudi Arabia overall really believes in following the Quran, right? So they follow this religious belief of doing the right thing. They're very community focused and have prayer on a regular basis. So how does prayer work? Okay, so 5 times a day the bell rings, and folks go to prayer or point toward Mecca, which is this place of worship. It is a very historical connection to the prophet, right? And so they face Mecca and pray. And so why is this so important? Well, a lot of times, or many times, especially in the morning, the men would gather, and pray. And it's kind of a sense of community. So in addition to the religious aspect of it, in addition to connecting with the prophet, in addition to connecting with their morals and values, a big portion of it is connecting with their community. And so I had an interpreter out there with me with some of the instruction that I was doing. And he shared with me that, the men would gather in the morning, and the times change, right? But the men would gather in the morning for morning prayer. And if one of the men in his small village, so he had his house and about 40 people in his direct area, right, that he regularly connected with because they focus on community. So if one of the men didn't show up, then the whole community would go looking for him the next day to make sure that he was safe and connected. Can we say that we do that here in the US? I don't think so. I think we can learn a lesson here, right? And so the idea of connecting, the idea of being a community and supporting each other and looking out for each other is really, really big there. And that's one of the benefits of having prayer. Aside from the religious aspect, it's that connection piece that was really, really important. Okay, so let's talk about women. So I was really worried that I was going to go to Saudi Arabia as a United States citizen, an American woman, and I thought I was really afraid of whether or not I was going to insult. Right? Would I wear the right clothes? Would I speak the right way? Would I do the right thing? And the reality is they're very, very accepting of travelers. They're just very accepting of tourism, right? And people visiting their country and seeing it for what it really is. I did purchase an abaya online on Amazon for about $30 and had it delivered, and I ironed it first before I went there. And I thought I'd be wearing it the whole time. And the answer is no, I didn't. When I went into the city, right, when I went into some of the local stuff, I would wear it. But if I was in DQ, the diplomatic quarters, or if I was with some other folks, I wouldn't wear it. However, I would cover myself fully. So my arms and my legs were covered. There was nothing fitting. There was nothing that would show my body. And that was respect for the culture. The culture really is simple and respectful, right? Simple and respectful. And so I wanted to be simple and respect the culture there. And so, you don't see a ton of flashy clothes and outfits. You instead see these beautiful abayas, which is a outfit from top to bottom that covers you. And quite honestly, I think you need it. I think you need it when you have 95-degree days, right? So in March, it was beautiful weather at night, breezy. The abaya on my arms or my long sleeves felt perfect. At night, during the day, it gets hot. It was about 90 degrees there, 90 Fahrenheit there, which is pretty hot, right? And but the heat, the covering really protected my skin. And so you'll see men and women wearing protectants over their arms, their shoulders, and so forth. And that really protects their necks and their skins. So yes, wear an abaya or wear all covering on you as a sign of respect for culture, but also to protect you from the sun. So women in particular, right? And so, there's lots of cultural differences between US and Saudi Arabia that we know, right? And so one of the cultural differences is women. Women recently were able to drive in 2019. They were able to, get their license and drive. Now, first here in the US, we might say to ourselves, oh my gosh, why is it taking so long for women to have those kind of rights? That's how we think about it. But in Saudi Arabia, it's not thought about in such the same way. Women, might have large families and many, many sons and many, many uncles and so forth, and who can drive them around. So they're kind of like, why would I want a car when I have all these people and family and community as part of my world driving me from place to place, right? So, a lot of times we think that women don't have rights in Saudi Arabia, that they're less, that they're considered not as equal, and not as good, right? Sometimes even the the restaurants might be separate, right? I didn't notice any of that, but we might consider them not equal. But the reality is the men truly value their women. They truly, truly value their women. So yes, we had to go to dinner in a family space versus in a traditional location for dinner because there were women there. But it wasn't insulting. It was kind of like a special thing for the women, right? And so a lot of Americans might think of this as stripping women from their rights, but the reality is it is deeply protecting their women. It's protecting their women from any kind of mistreatment from other people. It is protecting their women from anything that might be negative and happen to them. It is protecting their women on so many levels. And the women, feel like part of this community. And that really brings us back to that key component. They have community. They have community. They have family. They have community. They're part of a unit. And that is a beautiful thing. So another thing I wanted to share with you about this political difference that we have here in the U.S. We have government that, we have our Constitution, and we have our cities who vote, our people in our cities who vote, our state level of all of the laws and regulations, right? For instance, in U.S., we might have California that permits marijuana use, in another state like New Hampshire that does not, right? And so the people vote and they determine what to be true. And then different levels at the state level, different things at the federal level. And so it gets kind of confusing sometimes for us, right? Or we have international laws that are different, or I'm sorry, interstate laws that are different, and in terms of crime, right? So someone might be charged for a crime in one state and not in another state. And so that causes a lot of confusion, and we end up doing a lot of picketing and a lot of fighting and a lot of voting, and that is a good thing for us here in the US. That's our philosophy, is that we want to be able to vote. We want to be able to be free. We want to be able to, get the things that we want, and have a say in what that is. And in Saudi Arabia, the thinking is a little bit different. So they don't necessarily think of it as not free, right? So they have a crown prince who basically declares what is going to happen. This is going to happen, and no one fights about it. It just happens. So if, women can drive, if the crown prince says women can drive, then that's what happens. So women can drive, right? If the crown prince says, this is what we're doing, then that's what everybody decides on they're doing. And they don't see it as stripping their freedom to decide. Instead, they see it as they are looking out for our best interest, and we're gonna let them do that and let them make the political decisions. And then we're going to follow the Quran and do what is right because it's the right thing to do. And so that's where you'll see some of the flexibility happening with some of these rights with women, or changes and shifts in what women can do, because, they'll say, is that in the Quran? Yes or no, right? And so the people who are super into traditional ways will be super strict, and then you'll see some flexibility outside of that. But in the end, there's two different ways of thinking. And quite honestly, there's benefits to both of them. There's benefits to US thinking, that freedom that we love over here, right? But then there's the negative to it, that we're not simple, we're not unified, right? And then over there in Saudi Arabia, you have that way of thinking that the crown prince is really protecting us and doing what's right for our community, and we follow along, right? And so a lot of us in US might see it as stripping of rights, but it's not seen that way there. It's really seen as let them make the decisions and we're all unified. So there's definitely benefits to both, and you should know the difference of what it feels like to be over there. Now, I'm not a history buff, and I have not studied all of the history of Saudi Arabia, never mind the US, but I do know what I feel when I go over there. And that's what I felt. Okay. So the unified government, their taxes are different, right? So the taxes are different over there. Here in US, we give between 25 and 35% of our earned income to our government, right? And we complain a lot about where that money is distributed. And in Saudi, they don't give all of that. There's not the same tax system that we have here. The houses are not taxed the same. The properties are not taxed the same. The income is not taxed the same. Recently, they implemented 15%. I forget what it's called, but it's like a VAT, value added tax or something of that nature. And that really had people up in arms, like, what is this for? And so the money that Saudi really generates is through the oil system and now tourism. And so the money is just different and the tax system is different. And so it is a little bit different than we have here in the US. So it almost feels like the money that we're earning, we're actually keeping in Saudi, right? And so health insurance is free in Saudi, excuse me, school is free in Saudi because the government covers all of that. Okay, we're gonna pause for now.